Hello everyone and welcome to What Culture Comics, today for a cavalcade of comics news with me, Josh Brown, and my co-host, Zoe Miskelly.
Still Zoe Miskelly.
Still Zoe Miskelly. Zoe, do you want to kick us off? Because Loki issue 2 came out and it has some pretty interesting implications about the wider Marvel Universe.
It's surprising because usually every week we sort of do an X-Men, Powers of X, or House of X sort of little dabble in.
I've noticed, I've been keeping up.
Yeah, but now Ewan is gone or dead,
yeah,
and I get control of the news. And I've been looking around at some more varied stuff, and there's some really interesting stuff that's happening in both DC and Marvel right now. My favourite of which is that Loki may now be a member of the Avengers.
This is wild because you sent me through this, and I was first of all confused as to how this was going to happen, and kind of confused as to why he was motivated to become an Avenger. I like the idea that this series he's sort of going through this weird identity crisis where he doesn't know what he's kind of like the god of. He's kind of finding his place. So how has this actually come to be?
Well, he's been on a bit of a gap year right now.
I love that.
He's having a bit of a crisis. Like, he's gotten everything he wants. He's king of Jotunheim, and he's not really happy with it. So we see in the first issue him sort of leave being king. He leaves it with a snowman. It's a long story. And then in this one, we see him go to Stark Tower. Basically, you think they're probably going to have a fight or something, and then he turns to Tony Stark and says, listen, can I work for you guys? Can I be an Avenger?
I love that subversion because I'm not like the biggest, I don't have the most knowledge about Loki, but I like that he's always sort of had this kind of, crisis of place and crisis of identity. He's always trying to find where he belongs and what he kind of needs to be. And obviously that often errs on the side of evil, but to subvert that now, for him to go to Tony Stark and effectively just kind of be like, come on, Tony, come on. Throw a guy aboard. I kind of want to be an Avenger. It sounds cool. It sounds really good. Maybe I'd be really good at it. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, well, it makes you really feel for the guy. Basically, he gets laughed at by Tony Stark. He gets laughed at by Thor.
Perhaps
which is
surprising.
Surprising. And we see at the end, he's sort of having a bit of a sulk about it. And then he ends up in the House of Ideas. Now, I don't know how much you'll know about this.
Well, this is what kind of threw me for a loop, because when I was reading it, I didn't know whether this meant that he had left the continuity of the regular Marvel Universe to go somewhere else, or whether this was him changing the past and previous continuity. What does this mean?
Yeah, here's the bit that isn't sure. So, the House of Ideas, for anyone who doesn't know, is sort of Marvel's way of having the writers exist kind of in universe. They can make a lot of changes. They pretty much have control of the whole thing. So it's unclear right now whether Loki has actually changed universe into one that isn't the main Marvel universe, or if he's actually changed the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Because we see, essentially just before as he's transported into the House of Ideas, we see him go through a series of universes. They're all universes from comics. So they're all versions of Loki that we've seen before, whether it's Kid Loki, or the time he was president, or any of the weird stuff he was.
I love that little montage, to be honest. I like seeing those different versions kind of flashing before his eyes and stuff.
Yeah, so the most interesting part is there's a bit at the end where he says, I fall in love, I die in battle, I get everything I ever want, and now I find out what it costs me. And given the entire comic is him saying, I want to be an Avenger, my end goal is to be an Avenger.
Obviously.
Almost definitely.
That's what he's done.
I don't want to freak anyone out, but like, he may be an Avenger now. That's maybe where we're at.
So kind of the biggest question for me is, where do we obviously go from here? If Loki is now part of the Avengers, that's obviously going to shake up the dynamic, because like we saw in this issue, Tony Stark is kind of not hot on the idea. I imagine Thor is not hot on the idea, and yet I'm very interested to see kind of where this will go, and if it sticks, presumably, because I think it will. What's more tantalizing for you, that he has actually kind of like gone back and changed, the Marvel Universe, or he will just kind of exist and get his wish to be an Avenger in kind of this pocket thing that won't really impact the rest of the story?
See, the thing is, I don't particularly mind which way it goes, as long as, I think the important thing is Loki sort of learning the lesson that being an Avenger, sorry guys, kind of sucks.
Yes.
Like, there's no good point to being an Avenger. You're essentially like superhero government. The villains hate you, most of the heroes hate you, like, you work 9 to 5. As far as I can tell, they don't really have wages. I don't think that's ever been discussed in the Marvel Universe, like...
You know what, if I was getting bankrolled to be an Avenger, maybe all of the crap that comes with it. Maybe that's what it costs. Maybe it literally costs Loki all of his money. Maybe there is an entry fee that we don't know about to actually get in. Maybe that's how they fund everything.
It's just him being broke.
Yeah.
Broke and a superhero.
I want broken god Loki just walk. Can we talk about, actually, very quickly, and this has nothing to do with him becoming an Avenger or anything, but that Loki t-shirt. that he wears all the way throughout the comic, which honestly kind of put me off reading it. That was the very first image you sent from the comic to me, and I just thought, Zoe, I'm not sure this is my jam.
What is this? Yeah, he's very high fashion right now. For anyone who isn't reading it, it's very close to sort of the MCU Loki, and it's good. He's interesting, and I think it'll be very engaging to see him sort of grow as a character through this series. But also that shirt, man.
That's what else I was going to ask as well. I didn't want to sound too much like a Dumbo, but obviously when I was going through it, it felt very much kind of inspired, not entirely, but certainly in part by the MCU's version of Loki, which in his later appearances certainly went down a more kind of superheroic route. And I wonder if that's transferred over to the comic book interpretation. Because last time I read a comic with him involved, he didn't sort of feel that close to his cinematic counterpart.
I think there's been a lot more exploration of evil characters this far. You'll notice that they're also focusing quite hard on Venom, which I think right now for the MCU universe, there is a lot more room for villains, for villains, just in the sense of we've already seen Thor be a good guy, but we haven't necessarily seen Loki do that in the same way. And I think especially with the Kid Loki series making people kind of adore the dude, it's like why wouldn't we see him be like a better person?
Well,
maybe an Avenger.
Speaking of villains, we are now moving on to our next topic, which is a new series coming in November called Scream: Curse of Carnage, which is picking up after the events of Absolute Carnage. Once that wraps up, we will be getting this new mini-series, which it sounds exciting because everyone is going kind of mad for Absolute Carnage right now, and Scream obviously has their own mini-series in, let me get this right, Absolute Carnage Scream. I don't know why I had to write that down. Let's write that down. But the biggest mystery surrounding this seems to be who is going to be the host. When it was announced, they were kind of bigging up that Scream might not even have a human host at all, and it might just be this weird kind of amorphous, form working on their own. I have no idea how that would eventually come to be, but people seem to be enjoying Absolute Carnage. My issue is that the other symbiotes, I feel, apart from Venom, Carnage, I had a soft spot for Toxin back in the day, but apart from that, I was never really truly interested in them, and the latest Scream miniseries just came out at the time of recording yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to pick that up yet, but I don't know whether the writers have done anything to remedy that kind of lack of interest that I personally have throughout the years in these extra symbiotes. Zoe, are you excited for this at all?
As our token comic nerd who has read it,
come on.
I can bring you a little bit of news.
Well,
basically, although there is currently someone within the Scream symbiote,
yes.
Before that, more interestingly perhaps, the Scream symbiote possesses a corpse, a skeleton, which has some real implications, because we've gone back and forth in the Marvel continuity as to whether they can possess sort of anything, whether it's, an alive organism or not, or whether they can't. And as far as memory serves, it's been like, no, only alive stuff. Dogs, if we're going to get weird about it, but that's as far as we go. But this means literally anyone could become a symbiote.
Yeah.
Like, you could be dead, which is particularly interesting for anyone who's been reading Absolute Carnage, because we see this huge nest of corpses.
Yes.
And now it's like, they're not dead. They don't have to be dead. Let's absolutely go wild with it.
In the entire series has kind of gone completely crazy, and it's for me, when I jumped into it, it was more accessible than I thought it was going to be, to be honest, but at the same time, it was absolutely wild. I think Tucker Marcus on the pull list actually kind of teased about what's going to happen after Absolute Carnage finishes up, and he said, but after the events of Absolute Carnage, who is the Scream symbiote bonded to? What are their intentions, and what will a pair of web-slinging wall crawlers, Venom and Spider-Man, what will they have to say about their presence in New York? They seem to be going all in on the symbiote angle, and I think that is working. I think like we've kind of mentioned outside of this news video, that the horror focus of Absolute Carnage and the other miniseries surrounding it has been really rewarding, even if the stories themselves might not be always up to that level.
Yeah, I would say, even for people who don't necessarily like Venom, if you want to see Marvel get properly dark again, it's a pretty good place to go. I was telling you, they have a lot of spin-off stuff. So there's this one called Separation Anxiety that goes over essentially like what would happen if some of the symbiotes managed to invade just like a normal household. And that is absolutely thrilling in that it's literally just a horror film. So I'm very excited for that. Currently, Scream is hosted?
Yeah, host.
running with a host of.
That's good. That's good. We'll run with that.
She-Venom.
Yes.
Which is also incredibly exciting. I don't know if it'll last because She-Venom tends to never last for very long in comics. But I'm also very excited to see how that pans out. There's a lot of Venom stuff, basically.
Speaking of seeing how things pan out, Zoe, we do have a final, very quick news story about what comes after, final big news, after the Green Lantern.
So, and I've kept this one late because I feel like I could talk about it for like 10 minutes, but I don't want to. I want to talk about it in 1 minute because that's what you deserve. Essentially, we've got a new Green Lantern story, which may not sound exciting until you hear that it's written by Grant Morrison. It's drawn by Wonder Woman artist, whose name is Zamaniko. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And it's scheduled for November the 6th. It looks absolutely fascinating. Essentially, it covers if the Green Lanterns cease to exist, and instead became the Black Stars, which look like a sort of corrupted lantern.
Yeah, it was kind of described as a kind of space cult in the absence of the Green Lantern Corps, kind of keeping space kind of safe, led by Hal Jordan.
Which should be incredibly exciting. I'll read you a little blurb.
Please do.
Because it's a little treat. No Green Lanterns can be found patrolling their space sectors. Not a single power ring lights the darkness. What happens in the finale of Morrison and Sharp's incredible year-long run is shrouded in mystery. But the Green Lantern Corps is no more. Scratch that. They never existed.
I love that. I love that little tidbit at the end.
What has Hal Jordan done? I'm like,
what has he done?
Oh, not again, Hal.
Come on,
not like
Hal.
this, man.
Does this kind of indirectly spoil the ending of the Green Lantern?
I don't know, because it's not supposed to be part of the main DCU continuing. But also, in theory, with the Green Lanterns actually ending, the series is supposed to end in, I think, like a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So it spoils it without spoiling it, because we don't necessarily know if it's the actual ending or just a fun sort of alternate universe.
Yeah.
What if kind of scenario.
Well, that's it. From what I read, it's this Black Stars, which, by the way, has already gotten me in because it's the riffing on the title of a David Bowie album, which I love, which is also about space. Apparently, it's set outside the main DC continuity, which I found quite fascinating. I'm very excited for it, Zoe, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are you excited to see Scream get their own mysterious miniseries in November? Are you excited to see Loki potentially join the Avengers, be it in the main continuity or in his just own pocket universe where he can, he can have a good time. He can go around with the Avengers. He can realize that it's not all it's cracked up to be. Or are you looking forward to Black Stars, which is definitely the one that has caught my attention. But even if you haven't, couldn't you leave us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to What Culture Comics for more delicious content like this every single day. Even if you don't, though, I've been Josh, joined by Zoe.
And I'm Zoe.
And we'll see you soon.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.